gentlemen, everyone around and in between. It is Debate Sensei NPDA edition, where we talk about things relevant to competitive debate at the college level for the National Parliamentary Debate Association style of debate. I have with me our expert, Paul Villa from Diablo Valley College. Thank you very much, Paul, for being here.
Yeah, good to see you again. Sorry for the break.
Oh yeah, welcome back. We were we had Kyle Pryor Landman for a couple episodes, and that was great to have a little variety, but at the same time, nice to have you back. Excellent. So you were the big man in charge of this tournament, so you are the perfect person to be asking for any sort of insight behind the scenes and things like that. But let's give a little overview of CCCFA, because it's only one state in the nation that is invited to this. That's the California State Community Colleges. What makes this tournament unique, special, stand out?
I think there are a few things that are pretty interesting about CCCFA. The first thing is definitely that it's sort of an example of a weird tournament where we're using 99% the same rules that we would see in just like standard parliamentary debate,
right?
But with a vastly different judging pool,
right?
And with the added element of topic strikes, right? Because in normal parley, you only get one resolution for the whole tournament for the round. But at this tournament, the way it was set up is that, and the rules of CCFA say, you get 5 topics and then you strike it like it's IPDA. And so I think that's the first thing. And then the other thing is obviously just the judging pool, right? Like NPDA, National Circuit NPDA at least, looks drastically different than CCCFA NPDA. There's not really spreading. Like a topicality is about the most advanced thing you'd see. Funny enough, there were a couple of K rounds that happened in Parley, purely because my students read the K because they knew their judge had. A few of the higher judges were like NPDA technical people, and so they're like, "Oh, if we get the chance, we're just going to body these kids on the K." and so, as far as I'm aware, those are the only rounds where that happened. But yeah, it's an interesting tournament because it's very much about adaptation, and it every year poses a unique challenge for our program because of the community colleges. I would say we're arguably, probably I would say the only one that in California at least is still doing sort of national circuit style parley, partially just because our region has the University of the Pacific in it. And so if we want to be successful, and St. Mary's as well. And so if we want to be successful, we have to do that stuff. And obviously it's my background and whatnot. And so I spend at least half of my time being like, all right, let's prepare for Pacific or for Berkeley or for whoever, good technical parley school. But the tournaments I actually care about as a director is state and Fire Up High. And so we spend the last kind of month or two before Fire Up High and state just being like, all right, forget everything I taught you about going fast and about technical flow-based debate, and let's talk about these other things. So it's very much an adaptation game. And I'm always interested in seeing whether the kids can adapt to it. And to sort of wrap up a thought here, something that I thought was important and that kind of came up during the business meeting, as it pertained to certain things with debate potentially changing when they were trying to pass SPAR and it ultimately didn't pass. I was kind of talking about how this tournament, what I love about it is there's an empirical record of students who succeed at CCCFA going on to be successful national circuit debaters, right? To not speak of my own experience with getting scholarships and whatnot, but just speak about other students who had way better accomplishments. Henry Tolchard competed at the CCCFA, got a gold medal in parley at CCCFA, and I think in LD, and won NPDA and NPTE like 4 times. John Solomon got a gold in LD and parley at CCCFA and won NFA in LD. Brenna and Tristan got golds at state and at Fire Up High. Tristan was the top speaker at state 2 years in a row. And obviously they just won their, for the first time ever, they defended their title at NPDA. Right. And so even though NPDA has a very different vibe to it in parley and in LD, it clearly is a stepping stone or a building block that has empirically resulted in pretty good circuit debaters. So I love it. I love it. It's my favorite tournament every year.
Okay. Well, I mean, I went to CCCFA. I did that. I debated against Josh Wilkerson. And the two of us were in final round NPTE, you know what I mean? And so we were 2 California debaters that eventually, went on. So like that legacy goes back a very long time because I'm really flipping old. So, all right. Uh, there is other sort of unique aspects of CCCFA as well, which is that there isn't a single champion that's named.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
so
There were 3 golds given out this year in Parley, if I'm not mistaken.
three golds this year. But the funny thing is the way that we'll talk about the breaks a little bit, but so the way that it works is that there's only 2 elimination rounds. You get 6 prelims, and then everybody breaks to a bronze round if there's, like they'll do a partial.
If they have a winning record, yeah.
So everyone with a winning record moves on, and so everyone that gets at least a bronze. If you win that, then you're getting at least a silver. If you win the second one, that's what you get your gold. So that is also unique. So people don't really quite understand. He's like, yeah, I got a gold medal at state. You're like, oh my God, you're the best in the state. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you say that, because basically how I got so into debate is I showed up to the debate team's first practice at TVC, and I was talking to John Hanekak, who was the director of the team at that time. He's a professor, colleague of mine still. But I remember talking to him about, like, oh, who are the coaches and like who can I work with on debate? And he goes, we're actually going to have a peer coach this year, a student who was a state champion in parliamentary debate. And I was like, what? I'm like, the state champion in debate goes to DVC? I have to just listen to whatever this guy says. That guy, Sasan Khazravi.
Oh,
and that's how we became friends, because I was like, I have to spend time with this guy because he's like the best debater. And he very clearly was like, that's not how it worked. He's like, he's like, I'm not the best. But it was just funny because, yeah, I mean, it's, so that's the thing though. With some years, theoretically, the people who have won gold at state have been the best in the state of California, right? Like, I think you could argue that. So,
I mean, it still is. Yeah. It still is a very good accomplishment.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I don't know, it just takes too much time to explain it to somebody that doesn't know anything.
Yeah, festival style finals, if you're not used to them, like, And obviously IPDA, a lot of tournaments, that's just how it is. Like, it's almost always festival style. So,
well, let's talk about the entry. Okay, so the entry, I was looking at it. 19 seems kind of low. I don't know if you have any sort of longer term memory about what the trend has been. Is that
I have a spreadsheet breaking down all of the entries in Parley and LD and IPDA dating back to 2012 that I brought out at the business meeting. So yes, wow. I do know the historical trends.
Well, I mean, overall, it's been going down, but specifically for CCCFA, is there?
That's what I mean. I mean specifically for CCCFA.
Okay.
So we already had this. This was hashed out, at the business meeting, whatever. I cannot be convinced that the addition of IPDA to CCCFA and Tafaro Pi has not been a significant contributing factor in the decline of Parley. And I know that we were told when we passed IPDA as an event that, well, no, it's going to get people interested in debate, and then they'll go do Parley and LD. But here's just the numbers in case you're interested briefly, like a sort of a snapshot.
Yes.
2012 to 2016. So we add IPDA in 2016. From 2012 to 2016, the average number of entries in LD at state was 52. And the average number...
NPDA, right?
Oh, sorry, that's LD. I'm about to do NPDA.
Oh, I'm sorry.
NPDA was 77. So over this 5-year period. So then from 2017 to 2024, and let's get rid of COVID. Let's take out the anomaly of COVID, because obviously that makes the number. The average for LD went from 52 to 15, and the average from Parley went from 77 to 48. And obviously now we're at 19 from even 48. So really, there's just like some outliers there. But the reality is, we added IPDA, and within 1 year, LD lost half its entries, and Parley lost half its entries within 3 years. So yeah, I mean, I think that the entry has steadily gone down, and there's a lot of discussion both in the NPDA, like formal national circuit level, and also in sort of the tab room and at the CCCFA level about how do we get people to do Parley and to do other events. But there's some challenges to it when there are other debate events that just straight up require less coaching and are easier to get people into.
Yeah.
And when a lot of people sort of felt that the NPDA for a long time kind of lost its way and was, vacuous and silly.
Yeah. Okay. So we got 19, but you were talking before we started a little bit about how this year might also be exceptionally anomalous because of
Yes.
international. All right.
Yes. So this year, IFA was essentially at the same time as state, and a number of teams chose to go to IFA instead of going to state. And that obviously affects entries a bit, right? We didn't have IBC, we didn't have Elko. Now, Elko usually doesn't come. They haven't come to state in like 10 years. But that's a problem because Elko at Nationals every year has 6 Parley, 6 IPDA, 6 LD.
Yeah.
Like, they hit the cap. And if they could have 10, they'd have 10.
Yeah.
And so, when we're missing out on the other big CC sort of presence, that causes some challenges with it because having 25 instead of 19 is already a pretty significant increase if you have Elko there. It's difficult to have 12 debaters at all on a team these days that are like regularly competing. It's certainly difficult to have 6 partnerships, because obviously I push Parley hard on my students. We love it. We have a lot of fun with it. It's definitely our main debate event. But, I was able to put together 3 partnerships for this tournament. For Nationals, we have 4. But I literally don't even have the bodies to do 6 partnerships, like in Parley debate specifically. So the fact that it is a partnered event poses some challenges because we look at IPDA and it's like, okay, well, there are 60 IPDA entries, but technically there were 38 people doing Parley, which makes it sound a little bit closer.
Yeah. Right. Now, that entry is about half of what NPDA was.
Yes.
Here. All right. And so if NPDA was able to, schedule on a different time, they'd be able to increase their entry by, maybe.
This is the conversation we had last year about it. And, they're going to do their thing. The good news is that there's some new leadership coming in and they've made it very clear. Kyle actually being a part of that potentially.
Oh, okay.
Who've made it very clear that one of their goals is to get CCs back involved in NPDA. And so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that there's definitely a downward trend in debate overall. And I think that the more simplistic your event, the less people it requires, the less time it requires, the better it tends to be doing at this moment. And those things are a challenge for Parley. Last year, we had 30 people in Parley at the tournament. This year, we had originally 23 entries and then ultimately fell down to 19. By the end of the tournament. And so, some challenges posed by that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the actual results then, huh? All right. So we have 19 entries and it broke. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 broke out of that. So, okay. And which is what you should expect. Now you had 2 of your 3 teams break. Congratulations on that. Not just break, but like gold, right?
Yeah. We were 2 of the 3 golds.
2 of the 3 golds. Holy crap. Hey, how'd that turn out for the sweeps? I didn't look at the sweeps.
Did you not hear? Did you not go to like the awards proper or whatever?
No, I did not.
Okay, so then you missed some crazy stuff, Jared.
Okay.
We won state by 1.25 sweepstakes points.
Oh, wow. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, literally like the lowest margin ever to win state.
Really?
Yeah. It was so close that before we had the official results in, we thought we had lost. Like, we had been doing paper, like napkin math in the tab. Obviously, the tournament.
Yeah.
And basically, we had come to the conclusion that if Mount Sac wins this one round, they just win the tournament, right? And so we literally printed out the announce sheet for the sweepstakes, and DVC was in second, and Mount Sac was in first. And then when we looked in FTN, it said DVC won, and we were like, "What?" And then we ran the numbers by hand, did everything, and it turned out we had one. And so, how did I feel about those 40 sweepstakes points we got in Parley? Pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Felt pretty good about the Parley points.
Because it could have gone so quickly.
If we lose any one of those rounds, we lose by 10 instead of winning by 1.
Well, not only that, but I'm looking at both of your gold rounds, and they were split decisions. You lose 1 ballot. Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome. It's really awesome. Okay, so let's take a look at some of now. The way forensics tournament works is that it doesn't show the schools who broke. It shows the names who broke. I can't scroll through the damn thing.
if you go to results under Parley and like
Yeah.
you just like I guess Control F bronze, you'll be able to see every team that was in a bronze round at least.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that might
So,
be the easiest way to do it.
um,
But I can tell you, there was City College had a team break. We had 2 teams break. Fresno had a team break. Modesto had a team break. OCC had a team break. OCC had another team break. And then I think the last one was Rio Hondo and Solana.
okay. So is a fairly even split, but looks like Northern California is cleaning it up pretty good in the breaks.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty good.
yeah, not bad at all. It also broke. It was so the partial bronze. There was only 3 rounds were going.
Yeah.
Who bide through the
I know that Emily and Michelle from our team bide through. I
okay.
think that the other buy, let me just double check to make sure that I'm not crazy, but I think one of the other buys was OCC, but let's see. Yeah, OCC got one of the buys, and then the last buy was Rio Hondo. So
Rio
those are the top
Hondo.
3
Oh, I
seeds.
see. Yeah. Okay. Well, very nice. Oh yeah, they look at those records. Very nice. Were there any undefeated?
No, actually, in Parley there was only 5-1. 5-1 was the
Wow. Okay. Well, that's nice. That's nice.
We
Usually,
were 5-0 heading into the last round and then dropped. It was sad.
well, like because at NPDA, Brennan and Tristan just
Yeah,
woo, like
did it
they
again.
yeah. Not only undefeated, but the only ballots they dropped were in the final round, and was it only one? It was
No, so this year they dropped 3. It was a 4-3 in finals, 5-0 in sems. I think it was actually a 4-1 in quarters, maybe, but I can't
oh
remember off the
really?
head. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 4-1 if I'm not wrong. But I'm pretty sure they lost 4 ballots total the whole tournament across. And in elims, obviously it was like 3-person panel, 5-person panel, 7-person panel, or whatever. So they had like 20 people and lost 4 ballots in elims.
All right. Since we got a good amount of time, I was thinking that we might be able to like kind of parse through some of these topics here, and if you
Yes.
know about how any of those. So let's just do elims, not all the prelim rounds. So bronze round.
As a starting point,
Yeah.
essentially, I wrote all of these topics.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
all of them, or just
Literally all of them.
oh wow.
So the tab staff gave me some other topics, but we had a lot of overlap. And
Okay.
so I think there are something like 4 topics that I did not personally write
Okay.
in the
Okay.
entire tournament. And definitely elims 100% of them I wrote.
Yeah.
I was not going to play games. So I was like, yeah, we're not having topics that aren't debatable. We're not having unbalanced topics in this tournament.
Right. Absolutely.
Sorry,
so what are some of your favorite are some of your favorite ones in the elims, or did you
I tried to have some of the ones I really liked in elims. My favorite topics. Number 1, I wanted to put in the current, something close to the current LG resolution.
Oh yeah.
Because I just think that's fun as a topic,
Of course.
The topic that was my favorite, that was in the gold round, that I don't think anyone actually debated, was the first one here, which is the United States federal government should end its military aid to one or more of the following nations: Israel, Ukraine, or Taiwan.
Oh wow.
The thing is, I think I've maybe mentioned this before, but my process for writing topics is I have a spreadsheet with 5 columns in it, and I have AF-sided policy, neg-sided policy, AF-sided value, neg-sided value, relatively neutral fact.
Okay.
Because my goal is, if everyone strikes perfectly, we probably end up on a neutral fact, and most people don't practice fact debate that much, so good. It's probably balanced and fair.
Yeah.
Right? If you strike poorly, the other team should have an advantage because they get an AF-sided or an neg-sided topic, depending on
Right.
how it goes. And so my students, from talking to them, had a startling amount of value debates and fact debates.
Huh.
Like they had like very, very few policy debates at all. And they wanted policy topics, but I don't know if it was just an us thing, but like no one seemed to want to have policy debates with them. And so they had a lot of value
Okay.
debates.
Yeah.
I think even in the round where they like functionally read the K, it was because it was a value topic about capital.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah, I know that one of the topics that was debated, at least one, I think it might have actually been 2 of the rounds. The topic that seemed the most popular in this last round, given sample size of 3, was topic number 3 of environmental protection should be prioritized over economic growth.
Is this? Oh, this is the gold round. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
So in the gold round, I know that 2 of the 3 debates were on that topic. The last debate was on topic number 4, rural life is preferable to urban.
Rural life is preferable to urban life. Oh my God.
That was a callback because at my first state 10 years ago, that was the topic I debated in my bronze round and lost against Elko. And so I was like, there's a few resolutions in here actually that were like, I looked up topics from 2014 state and used them.
All right, let's say Elim won. You might have you probably weren't you didn't know what was happening, but they might have talked to you. Did anyone talk to you from your team afterwards about the round, for Elim 1?
Well, yeah. I got to check in with my kids by the end of the tournament, kind of about every, thing that happened. So we had Tanya, who's our other debate coach, and so she was like giving me updates of like, I think this is what happened in the debate, blah, 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 blah. We probably lost, we probably won, whatever, it was.
Okay.
And so in our bronze round, we only had one of them because Emily and Michelle vied through. And I'm almost entirely sure that our topic was number 4, surveillance technology does more harm than good.
Surveillance, okay, does more harm than good. Okay.
And I know that at least in our debate, what it came down to was the definition of surveillance technology. I believe, if I'm not wrong, that we were affirmative and we were like, surveillance technology is something like, audio or visual recording technology, essentially, right? Like monitoring people through audio or video means, is what surveillance is. And the other team tried to say things like, oh, surveillance technology includes like license plate scanners that the police use. And basically just like they try to say, and like baby monitors are surveillance technology, and those are good or whatever, and so like kind of, I guess, like, and so in the end, my understanding is that we won the definitions debate, and then a lot of their stuff got framed out, and that's kind of how we ended up ahead.
So the question I have, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but like, did they actually turn that into offense on the case? Because so often I get people is like, well, that's not entirely accurate, and then they just go on and start doing refutation on case rather than, it's like those objections are you're supposed to use them to leverage a position. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, did they have a baby monitor's position? Like, did they have a license plate position?
So my understanding is that the other team stood up, read like their counter definition kind of thing, and then we're like, here's technologies that are good, and read like baby monitors and like these various other things.
Okay.
And then in the end, we were just like, those are absolutely not surveillance technologies. Like no one's ever said I'm surveilling my baby right now. Like and so yeah. I think
that seems to be like a strategic miss, to borrow from like chess terminology, that
like a blunder.
Yeah. I mean, because like you could say, like I think like national security stuff would be your go-to on surveillance,
which is what we talked about basically, right?
I
think they also tried to read positions about like climate satellites.
Climate satellites?
They're like surveilling the climate.
But that's surveying.
And it's kind of, I think, what my kids were saying in the day. It was like, no, that's not what that word means. Like when people
like land surveyors are not surveillance.
And I think similar. There was a thing about like monitoring like animal movements, and it's like, well, okay, maybe close, but like surveillance tends to be of people. Like we surveil people doing people things. But here's the thing. I think that's probably the right thing for the other side to try and get in, right? Obviously, your job as a negative is to try and expand the debate to include your arguments, and so I don't fault them for doing it. But my understanding is the team read this definition, did not read any reasons to prefer, did not make it any sort of topicality like objection,
right.
and then our kids were like, "You default to the AF. The AF gets to be emphasized." We're not. Basically, we're not framing out their value. We're framing out their understanding of what the resolution means. And so they have all the ground. They just read stuff that's not within the topical definition.
It's a really common sort of, I call that like a junior level mistake. You know what I mean? It's like you run a pretty good T, but then you don't have like you don't have the second level stuff to kind of back it up, So it's you're there, but not all the way there. Not all the way.
It's interesting because if you're obviously I can't speak. I don't know who we even debated in this round, but the thing is, we come from like a Parley focus, an LD focus, and we do IPDA because it exists. Like that's literally how I think about IPDA. It counts for sweepstakes, so we
yeah.
But I think a lot of these schools come at it from the opposite direction. They do Parley because it's another debate event and they happen to do IPDA. And in IPDA, people just aren't ever reading T. Like they might say, actually, I disagree with this definition. Here's why you should prefer mine. But it's never a voting issue. So my kids, and especially this team, they're LD debaters and have done LD for a long time and been reasonably successful. And so like they've had like 50 T debates or something in their lives, and like they know that if you don't say these things, that you don't have anything going. Like you're saying, there's no offensive implication. It's just we disagree with the definition. Fascinating that's true, but doesn't do anything for
it. It was a hard lesson for me to learn. But what do you mean? I have a better definition. Is like, so like, so what? There's got to be some sort of second level stuff. And once you get to that level, you're like, oh wow, yes, that makes so much sense. Like you got to have a reason for saying this, not just an opinion.
I would say if there's one thing that by the end of my career I felt very, very like kind of elite level at, it was topicality. Like me and Dallas loved reading topicality, and all of my students are kind of trained in the church of topicality. Like we're always topical. We're always topical, and that's what we do. Like we never read a plan that's like wonky. Like it's just a straight up topical plan. And so they've gone, I'm teaching there's these 7 things you need to say. And if someone else doesn't say these 7 things, then you should be thinking about going for it. And like, here's, floor versus ceiling and all this other kind of stuff with T. And so when they're going against students who aren't familiar with T and just say, we disagree on the definition, they're like, that's great. I don't know what we're supposed to do with that. But yeah. And so, I think that I was pretty happy with this slate of resolutions. 2 of the topics are relatively adjacent to the current LD topic or previous LD topics. And the reason I like doing LD topics sometimes in rounds is there's a lot of research on it. Like it wouldn't be enough topic students to find evidence on it. I also, to a certain degree, think that both students in IPDA and LD, like who do Parley, should be rewarded for the skills they learned in those formats, right? So I like having a few. There's one of the most popular topics at the entire tournament was werewolves are preferable to vampires.
Yeah. Oh man, I still do that for my class. They love it.
Yeah, it was very, very. And the thing is, like, if you're an LD kid, you're like, "What's going on here?" But if you're an IPDA kid, you're like, "This is my wheelhouse. I'm gonna do on vampires versus werewolves." And that's definitely something I'm conscious of as a tournament director. Like, hey, if kids are doing debate, they should be rewarded for doing debate. So let's make sure we mix both wheelhouses. If you want to have an exceptionally technical debate about the use of drones, go for it. But if instead you want to have a debate about werewolves or whatever it might be, then let's go for that as well. Let's give people the option to do those things.
Yeah. So there's a drone, like reducing drone use in military operations, eliminating the nuclear arsenal, censorship does more harm than good, the surveillance one, and then a college education is no longer necessary for the average worker. That would round it out ELIM 1.
Mm-hmm.
All right. ELIM 2, gold round. You said that that one of your teams or both of your teams were
I believe so there were 3 debates. One of my teams debated topic 3, the other one debated topic 4, and then the other debate that we were not in was topic 3, as far as I'm aware.
So 2 of them did topic 3. Environmental protection should be prioritized over economic. That is just man, I've had that debate so many times.
It's one of my favorite topics. It's probably my favorite value topic because it's exceptionally debatable, and it's a topic that, and this is one of my favorite things to debate, it's a topic that scales with how good you are at debate.
Okay.
Right? That topic is completely accessible if it is your first day ever debating.
Yes.
You could win either side, right?
Yes.
But if you're like an incredible debater, it's an even better topic for you, right? Because instead of just having, the general discussions, you can have like these sequencing questions and like, what is an environmental protection? What is economic growth? How are these things different? How do they relate to each other? And I think that is a very interesting concept.
Now, do you think that skews AF the way
I intended for that to be an AF-sided topic.
Okay.
And I base that, I think that in a neutral skill level debate, like teams of equal levels, it's AF-sided is how I'd put it.
Yeah.
Primarily, partially because just the evidence, right, that the environment matters a lot. But more importantly, when I'm writing these topics, I'm thinking about judge pool. And I think that the majority of the judges at this tournament probably think climate change is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're at the California community, like it's all community college professors, overwhelmingly liberal demographic. like they're probably on that side of it. And you know, I have this is actually one of the topics I use in my not forensics class, but my argumentation debate class. It's one of the 3 options students can choose from, and it's always popular. People love having this debate. And it's very interesting because so many students are like, "Oh, I couldn't imagine being on the other side of this topic," and I'm like, "Well, you come to a debate tournament, you're probably going to have to be at some point."
Yeah,
This comes
you
up
got to
a
figure
lot.
it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so on the value ones, like I don't know, on the neg, one of the strategies on these value topics is really muddying up the water, and then and going presumption. You know, if you don't know at the end of which one is better, then it's like one of the sort of initial strategies. I'm like, listen, if you are confused at the end of the round, to tell the judge if they're confused.
It's
Neg
an
win.
egg ballot. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. You know, one thing that I like about topics like this is that it's sort of a microcosm of a skill set students need to learn when they're in like national circuit style debates,
Mhm.
which is you just are going to have a million debates that are econ disad versus environmental climate change disad at the impact level. And
Right.
essentially, this is just who can explain the internal link debate better, who can do this sort of strength of length and then time frame versus magnitude kind of
Mhm.
debates. And so I think this is a topic that teaches students an important skill set that they're gonna have to learn and refine to be good at debate.
So you had one AF and one neg in that final round. Do you know which one was doing which topic?
I believe that so whichever one of my teams, because there was flips if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
One of my teams, I know that one of them was AF because they were on environmental protections,
Oh,
and if
it's
I'm not mistaken, I think we were on urban life on the urban life side of topic 4, so we must have been negative in the
yeah,
other.
I'm looking at the postings and it says that the other one was neg. So if you're AF on the environment, then yeah, they would have been neg for urban life.
Yeah.
Yeah, really quick, little breakdown on each one. Do you able to share what the strategy was on the environment versus econ debate?
Yeah. So in terms of environment, I mean, this is again, it's a discussion that I have with my students like a lot. We've had a million debates on environmental protection type stuff. But basically, the way that I teach my kids these debates is the team that's going to win is has to basically the win condition for both teams is as follows. Both sides are trying to win a sequencing discussion. They are trying to win that the only way we can get your thing is with our thing,
Mhm.
i.e., the only way we can have economic growth is if we have a protected environment, because
Right.
otherwise the economy will crash. And vice versa, the only way we can enforce economic policy is if the economy is doing well, because in a bad economy, we burn tires, not
Right.
nuclear fuel,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that's kind of step one. That's true for both sides. But then I tell my kids, when you're on the environment side of the debate, you're going for probability and magnitude. And when you're on the economic growth side of the debate, you're going for magnitude and time frame, pretty much always, right? And
Yeah.
so what it's going to come down to, since you're both going for magnitude most likely, is probability versus time frame. And as
Mm.
far as I'm aware, that's basically what the kids went for. They were just like, we the economy, like the only thing that guarantees the economy will collapse someday is the environment not being protected. Like it
Right.
is for sure. So all you're doing when you prioritize economic growth is people having money now and partying in the interim, as we call it on our team. It's something
Mhm.
Steve taught me. Every time there's an econ versus environmental debate, Steve's like, the strat is party in the interim, if you're on the econ side, right? Like, you're like, we're all going to die, so we might as well have fun while we can. When it came to the rural life versus urban life debate, this is actually a topic we've never had like any kind of debate of on my team, as far as I'm aware. Like I said, this is a topic that I debated in 2014,
Yeah.
and so they're much less familiar with it. And I think the way they got out of this, if I'm not mistaken, is their framework. Like my students ended up winning the framework debate, and I think they had a thing that was about like essentially like personal autonomy. And I'm
Mm.
pretty sure the analysis they kind of went for is that if you are in an urban area, from the perspective of personal autonomy and whatnot, you probably are more welcomed as a member of like the LGBTQ or
Okay.
minority community, right?
Okay.
That from that perspective, like if you're in a rural area, not necessarily the best place to be, a trans person or potentially a black person, depending on where you're at. And they just use that analysis, like their framework that they won, to frame out a lot of the things that the other team went for, as far as like yeah, but life expectancy is higher in rural areas, or crime
Oh,
is a little bit lower, or whatever it might be. And they just went for like, yeah, if you're a white
uh,
farmer who owns land, yes, that is true. But if
yeah,
you're a black trans woman, it's not. Life expectancy
yeah,
is significantly shorter.
yeah. Yeah, I could see that round in my head going down. Like if
Yeah,
you don't, you got to get ahead of that debate. You got to see it. You know what I mean? It's like you got to put yourself into your opponent's position, and that's what I often did. I'm like, all right, I'm going to pretend I'm on neg. What arguments would I start prepping? I'm like, oh shit, I got to start doing that. I gotta get ahead of that debate, and sort of the diversity and the the different cultures would be something that you got to get ahead of in those areas. And so you start getting pretty critical pretty quick though when you do that. I think
I
that
think obviously, given that we were like 2 of the 3 golds, and had a pretty good break rate and whatnot across most of the debate events. I think if I was looking at ballots, the thing that it seemed to set my students apart to a certain degree was just that despite us not being a very well practiced value team, like we're much more policy style, even facts. I tell the kids, I'm like, hey, avoid value as best you can. If you can avoid the value, I want you to avoid it because you never know what criteria and value the judge is just going to prefer, and then like half of your arguments go away. And
yeah.
they just completely ignored my advice, apparently, and had a million value debates. But in almost every ballot I read that went our way, it says something along the lines of, I think that this team is winning, that this is the way I evaluate the debate. And from
Mhm.
that perspective, their arguments are winning, which I was happy to see because it's not something that I think I've done a great job of coaching. And so their ability to adapt in that sense, I think, is pretty important for them.
All right. All right. The other gold round, I don't know if we said it before, Rio Hondo. So 2 DVC, 1 Rio Hondo. Congratulations, all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone, congratulations, everyone, for getting those breakouts. All right. Well, interesting stuff. Man, I hope that maybe we could find a way to get NPDA back to, or at least like back on a trend, an upward trend, one way or another. But still, like people getting their kudos for what they are, even if it's at a sort of a low tide point in the activity. Paul, thank you so much for giving us some insight on what happened at the state tournament. I look forward to seeing you in the future in some future episodes.
See you later.
All right. Here we go.